What does having rights mean to you? To me, it means the freedom and a sense of responsibility, knowing that I have these rights to protect my way of life and the way I portray myself. I am here today to talk to you about the Second Amendment and the importance behind it. Now, don't get me wrong, all the amendments are important, but in recent years, the Second Amendment has had some scrutiny. I hope to persuade you, as my audience, that the Second Amendment is as vital as all of the other amendments. The definition of the Second Amendment, as defined by the World Wide Web, is the Second Amendment was meant to help the people protect themselves from a tyrannical government. Just like the revolutionaries who fought against the King of England, they wanted to maintain their right to bear arms in case the new government began to take away their rights. But also from the Constitution, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. People want to repeal this amendment because they are afraid of what it stands for. But I am here to persuade my audience that it is in fact not to be imposed. None of the amendments are. As Noah Schusterman says in his article titled, "What the Second Amendment Really Meant to the Founders," love it or hate it, the Second Amendment provides the constitutional framework for the American gun laws. And also, as with all things constitutional, Americans are adapting 18th century laws to fit 21st century lives. Now, this doesn't fit into my frame of mind of the importance of this amendment, but I know there are two sides to this debate, and I am willing to accept that there are flaws in the thinking of every American gun nut. Being one myself, I could go on for hours debating this topic, but we'll keep it to a minimum because I am not looking to upset anyone or degrade what they have every right to believe in. I'm simply here to try to change your position on the matter. Now that, in fact, some people think that everyday Americans should not have the right to defend themselves because we have a law enforcement military force to protect us. Every American citizen has the right to bear arms, whether people like it or not. The fact that I can hold my own in a gunfight if the government turns on us is quite refreshing in my mind. As Alexander Hamilton said in the Federalist Papers, the most natural defense of a free country is a well-armed militia. Amazingly, the antis of his statement agreed, saying, "A well-regulated militia composed of the yeomanry of the country have ever been considered the bulwark of the free people." Now that to me sounds like a pretty good statement to satisfy both sides of this argument. Some people believe that the Second Amendment should be ratified or changed, but I believe that the regulations of firearms and ammunition and how to acquire them are strict enough. The whole point behind the Second Amendment is to stop a government takeover and to prevent the government from ruling with a professional standing army. A standing army is essentially just an army of professional full-time soldiers. By the logic behind what the Founding Fathers truly wanted, a society with a standing army could be a truly free nation. The problem with free citizens not being able to arm and defend themselves is that the people running the professional army could just order them to attack the free people unprovoked or unannounced. I am here to help you understand and maybe change your mind that the Second Amendment is truly needed and shouldn't be messed around with. You have to have common sense. The only way for a nation to truly be free and secure from tyranny is to be both armed, organized, and ready for anything, and also to defend their society. The government can't take away the right to defend oneself without serious repercussions. I want you guys to understand that. For example, there was a court case in 2008 that dealt the pro side of this argument a huge victory. District of Columbia versus Heller. It stated that the right for an individual existed not only in a militia format, but also a freestanding citizen format away from the government. Sanctions. Now, I know this may seem like a lot to process, and everyone is entitled to their own opinions and thoughts about what I'm dealing here, but you have to think in the mind of a true American. We all have the same rights. the people that people want to mess around with. And you as citizens yourselves, I'd hope you would think logically and think the same way. Now that I said, Now, like I said, I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. I am just trying to persuade you to think logically and think in the mind of a guy like me. I understand that there are a lot of gun-related crimes, including mass shootings, gang-related crimes, etc. But that doesn't mean it's the amendment's fault. And people think it is, and the simple result would be to amend the amendment. In my opinion, and in the eyes of the constitutionally moral group of gun lovers, it's medical, not constitutional. It's not fair that everyone associated gets blamed. Some people need medical attention and need a serious evaluation before picking up a gun. For example, the recent shootings in Vegas, Texas, and Florida, none of those people were stable enough to be around. Now, I know that makes you think, well, there's a solution to that. Let's make more regulations and rules pertaining to guns and the Second Amendment. But in reality, that would not do a thing. Even if there are stricter laws, it won't stop a common criminal from obtaining a weapon. All the regulations are going to do is essentially embarrass the lawmakers. But in retrospect, if the laws and the amendment are kept the same, then the scrutiny behind the whole thing will fade off with a new news story down the road. If you think about it, Janie said in her article why the Second Amendment is the most important right. One side thinks these senseless deaths would end if we control or outlaw the method in which they are committed, while the other side believes the weapon of choice is obsolete in the mind of the person who is intent on killing. That's a lot to process, but in my mind, that means no matter what the regulations are, criminals and mentally unstable people will always find a way to commit the crime and obtain a weapon. Changing the Second Amendment will do nothing to stop crime. It will only create another stream of unlawfulness to move into our society. If people would apply common knowledge and realize that the truth that only 3% of gun crimes are committed using legally obtained firearms, and that 96 to 98% of death by guns were either suicides or accidents. It's not like people are just going around nonchalantly and shooting people for the thrill of it. Yes, there are a select few, but should all law-abiding citizens be punished for the actions of those select few? I think not. If all American people, including my audience today, would read the facts and be aware that almost all guns, homicides, or crimes are caused by illegally obtained weapons, not subject to the gun control laws. So the law-abiding people should not be punished for these offenses by changing what the forefathers and us as Americans hold so dear, the Bill of Rights, with a special consideration to the Second Amendment. I will end today by doing two things: leaving you to think this over and possibly change your mind on the position, and a quote by Ben Franklin that I think sums everything up. They that can give up essential liberty to obtain a temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Thank you for your time.